I hope you're all keeping well. The first thing I want to say today is I want to give a retraction to some fake news I made myself. Well, it wasn't fake; it was semi-fake. And yes, I do make mistakes now and again. And I'm only human, of flesh and blood. I'm made on human. Perfectly happy with my immune system. So many nights I've longed to strangle Bill Gates. So many nights I've longed to see him gone. But now that all the branch COVIDians are here, I don't know how I can carry on. I'm only human. Anyway, a retraction. Um, I said the other day that 43 million people in the EU had adverse side effects of the needlecraft and 43,000 had died. I made a mistake. 43,000 have still died, which is the important number, but 4 million, not 43 million, have had adverse side effects. That's an official number from the thing called the European Medicines Agency, which is an EU body, so that's an in-house legit number. It's not made up by, Truthers for Christ or something like that. It's like the Illuminati, none of that kind of thing. But yeah, so 43,000 have died officially in the EU of adverse reactions to the needlecraft, and 4 million have had adverse reactions. And I've seen them all the time walking around with the ticks and the limps and everything. And that's the ones you see on the streets. Now, that I would somebody said in one of the recent comments in one of the videos that any kind of adverse reaction number has been underreported by a factor of 40. I would know. I'd definitely believe that, or maybe even be higher. Say you're a GP and you're administering the needlecraft to 100 patients, and 30 of them come back saying, I'm all fucked up since you gave it to me. Well, it's not going to be in your interest to actually to do that. That's a 30 who bothered. The other ones are all at home too stupid going, oh, it's a conspiracy theory. I started having shakes and blood clots after I had the needle graft. Those idiots. But, I could believe it's much more, but that's a retraction. It wasn't 43 million that had adverse reactions. It was 4 million. And it was still 43,000 that died. That's the same number, and that's fucking enormous. So, this is the world we live in now. Now, a friend of mine in Scotland posted something there that on MeWe that you're not going to believe that. It's just one of these things where you're like, what spaceship abducted me and took me to this planet, right? Bill Gates and his crew are working on a new version of the needlecraft, one that will be spread by, wait for it, people coughing and droplets of vapor from people's coughing and so on, and moisture from the. So they're inventing a needlecraft that does what herd immunity normally does in a viral situation. It spreads by people coughing and coming into close contact. They'll only have to inject 5% of the population, but everyone will get immunized by the rest coughing. So the reason why they told us that, I'm a sciencer, herd immunity doesn't work, it doesn't exist, is because they're putting a price on it now. There's now a price tag on herd immunity. That's why they said it didn't exist, is because they couldn't, as you know, well, that was obvious, wasn't it? That they couldn't put a price tag on it. Now, Bill Gates, that insidious Windows Zero, is putting a price tag on it and now selling it. And the article was put out there like, isn't this great? We now have a way of spreading immunity by people coughing near other people. That's how it always happened, motherfucker. Oh, we only have to inject the first few with the needlecraft. What? Now, apart from all the other... See, you remember that Bill Gates Common Core thing? Remember that? Did you remember that Common Core thing? Back in the day, it was a new education system that he had planned for America. Who gives this cunt all this power, right? And it was just insane. It was clearly gaslighting. And it was obviously, this makes no sense. That's not how you add numbers. They won't even get to that number. But it was designed to scramble the next generation's minds. That was the purpose of Common Core. And that's why Trump, God bless him, immediately damaged it, banned it from American school curriculum. It was designed to scramble children's cognition so they could be, to gaslight them basically, so they'd be completely dependent upon orders because they'd have no logical ability to do things like even add numbers up correctly. It was purely sinister and evil. It was kind of like a cognitive lobotomy by the Gates Foundation. And what was more frightening was the amount of American school teachers are going, this is how this wonderful system works. You know, the NPC is not, remember, they're the biggest fuckers of all. These public sector workers, they're the biggest thickos of all of them. And, of course, I knew school teachers who were vehemently against it. But, yeah, of course you should be. It didn't work. You know, what's 24 and 24? You put 3 zeros on the end of the first 24 and 3 zeros on the beginning of the second 24, add two of them together, take off the 3 zeros on either end, and the answer is 48. Like, that's literally what it was. I mean, even worse than that, though. Even worse than that. But that Common Core thing has now been brought into pharmacology. So we now have medical gaslighting. So, you don't have, I don't think there's been a human being on this earth more evil than Bill Gates. He has nothing good to offer the human race on any level. He's here to destroy us at every turn and to disrupt our nature at every... What he reminds me of? He's the not the Antichrist, he's the anti-Tom Bombadil. Those of you who have read Lord of the Rings or Tolkien's know there was a character in the book called Tom Bombadil who was left out of the movies. And when I first heard about this, I was like, oh, that's kind of lousy. That they're leaving Tom Bombadil out of the movies. But having said that, the movies are fantastic. So like they couldn't put everything in. But that, like the hobbits at the end killing the humans in the Shire, there were certain things that had to be taken out. Were just taken out for the length of the thing. Unfortunately, it didn't stop them from putting mountains of bullshit onto the Hobbit and destroying it. But anyway, Tom Bombadil is a character that they encounter just as they leave the Shire. So he lives on the border of the Shire and somewhere close to Bree. So he lives between the Shire and Bree. And he's like a nature spirit / god. And he's one of the most mystical and intriguing characters within the whole Tolkien cycle. He's got a hot wife called Goldberry, and he lives in a cottage. Now, the hobbits encounter him, and he helps them. Now, he's just, all he is filled with the joy of life. And Tom Bombadil has existed longer than the beginning of Middle-earth. He was there before, as they say, the seas curved. And he was there at the time of Ilúvatar, and probably a bit older than that, even Middle-earth, older than the universe, maybe. And Tom Bombadil, he looks like, he's kind of like a jolly Odin type character, and with a pointy hat. And he's always singing songs, and he's always jolly. And the hobbits rest in his house one night, and they all have amazing dreams, and they feel psychologically refreshed by the experience. And he is known to all the races of Middle-earth, Tom Bombadil, as a mysterious but kind of cherished nature spirit. Like when they're having the High Council of the Elves, Elrond asked his council, should we take the ring off, instead of giving the ring to one of the Fellowship, what if we give the ring to Tom Bombadil? Because in at one point Frodo gives him the one ring, and Tom Bombadil is not affected by it, and he puts it up to his eye like very Odin. He puts it up to his eye like this, and he puts it on his finger and doesn't go invisible, and then he throws it up in the air and it vanishes, which is a very interesting thing. And the hobbits gasp because they think the ring has been lost, and then he puts it back into Frodo's hand. So he's kind of a magician as well. But the reason the elves, the Elf High Council with Elrond, decides that maybe Tom Bombadil is the man to is the man the entity to bring the ring to Mordor, and then Gandalf interjects and says he's too easygoing. He'll probably forget about it or lose it. But he also can't probably exist outside that domain, that realm that he exists in between the end of the Shire and the Bree. In fact, his magical presence may well be the reason for the existence of and the protection of the hobbits. He acts almost like a good-natured magical barrier between the Shire and Bree. And he's friends to the farmers along there as well. Now, so when the hobbits are in trouble, they sing a song and he appears. They're rescued. They're captured by it. That also wasn't in the book. Actually, a lot of his lines in the book were actually put into some of them Treebeard. Remember the scene in the movie where Merry and Pippin are eaten by the big oak, and then Treebeard comes over and goes, "Stop eating hobbits, dig deep, eat earth, eat soil." Well, that was Tom Bombadil's line in the book, and so he rescues the hobbits and twice, and then later on they're kidnapped by a Barrow-Waite, and Frodo sings a song and Tom Bombadil appears. So he's a spirit, a god, a nature spirit, a benevolent, kind force that's childlike and full of joy. And he's older than time itself. So his purpose, he's known to the Gondorians, he's known to the Rohans, he's known to the elves, and he's held in high regard. Yeah, but no one could figure him out. But they know that he's a force for good. Well, Bill Gates is the there's an antichrist in Christians. Bill Gates is the anti-Tom Bombadil. He's there when you don't fucking want him. He's there to cause problems, and when you have problems, he makes them worse. And you're drained by his existence. You're not helped in any way, and he exists in a certain realm between the Council on Foreign Relationships and the Bilderbergs. That's his domain. And you wouldn't trust him with the One Ring, because unlike Tom Bombadil, who wouldn't really care about it, the anti-Tom Bombadil, Bill Gates, would probably turn it into a weapon to destroy humanity. And that's what he is. That's what Bill Gates is, the anti-Tom Bombadil. And so he's now creating Common Core pharmacology. It's unbelievable what this guy gets away with, and he's worse than Joseph Mengele and all of them put together. He smirks and smiles when he talks about the next pandemic will kill lots of people. You can see him on camera doing that, and his wife is beside him. Whatever that thing is, she's just as bad. And where we have landed, where Tom Bombadil in Middle-earth exists to keep the joy of life alive. Windows Zero, Bill Gates exists to destroy the joy of life, right down to something like how the immune system protects and saves us. He is horrible. And all the... there's no one. Have you noticed that all the fucking Isle of Science types have all vanished? Up until 2020, my social media was flooded with people posting things from I fucking love science. and I would read IFLS, and I would read down the threads, and there'd be all these like Karens and all these other fuckers, who normies and NPCs, who thought they were sciencers because they agreed with, look, like they show something on, you know, a printer that picks up energy from the sun and prints, and go, and you'd have like some kind of housewife school teacher in Madison, Wisconsin, going, if this is true, then the human race just got a lot smarter. This kind of fucking thing to prove how clever they were. And then slagging off anyone who didn't fucking love science unconditionally. And you could tell that none of them knew anything about science. It was just like a virtue signaling thing to make themselves believe that they were more clever than anyone else. But interestingly, not once in the history of that website, and I found a lot of good stuff on there, just the articles they referred to, did they ever go after Common Core by Bill Gates. And the same with the Rona. They never got any. They were on the forefront of far-right conspiracy theorists, anti-science types. But they've all vanished. Are they dead? I think they are. I think many of them are dead or destroyed by this transubstantiation of the sacred needlecraft. Because they're not, the smugness has been, and I've seen it on Irish normie boards, that you had like where you had the Branch Covidian, the zealots, or even ones who were like what I'd call hyper normies, who totally believe the government loves them and everything. They're not posting like, and even I've seen moderators say these boards have gone really quiet lately. I think they're all dead. They're either all dead because a lot of them would be civil servants and public workers, and they're on the foghorn leghorn boy. That's the second one, the second rooster. Boy, I say boy, two of them. So they've even had the foghorn leghorn boy. I say boy, and so four transubstantiations, and I think they're all fucking dead or disabled or at home, not able to think anymore. I am safe now from a virus that kills 0.1% of the population, and 99% of them are over 83 years of age. But I'm safe. I'm safe. Fucking no science. Yeah, that's them ones. And I'm only stupid of medications and RNA I made. Only stupid with my palsy and twitches and limps and blood clots galore. But yeah, unfucking believable. And I have a theory now. It's genocide. The whole Rona thing was obviously clearly, it was genocide. It was genocide now to wipe out the middle class in particular, the sort of suburbanite middle class in particular. And then you say, well, why would they want to do that? And I have a theory why they want to do that. They want to kill off the public sector workers, particularly the civil servants, before they can collect their pensions. And they knew that they knew that all the civil servants, all being like lefties and liberals, would all run up with their arms rolled up, going, "I love science, inject me." So they'd all be like foghorn leghorn, boy, I say boy. And I think it's to kill them off. If you look at the pension funds for public sector workers in Western countries, they're fucking colossal. If you look at the pension fund of, if you were to take the pension funds of Ireland, right, just for our public sector workers or civil servants, right, it is going to bankrupt the country. They have pensions that are colossal, that are like a clerk in the civil service working there for 40 years retires with a pension that a CEO would get from a Fortune 500 company. They're literally getting pensions like that. Their units and the government. See, the government have used the civil service as a gatekeeper, as stormtroopers against those of us who were like, hold on a second, these politicians are scumbags. They've used them as their foot soldiers, and how they've done it is things like entitlements, so huge pensions and stuff. So they had to kill them all off so they couldn't collect their pensions, otherwise they'll bankrupt every Western economy. So they devised this thing that would kill them all before they would turn 60 or 65 and collect their pension. That's what that's about. It's genocide. Oh, you're such a conspiracy theorist. These things don't happen. Yeah, no, they didn't happen. No, the Third Reich didn't happen, and the Stalinistic purges didn't happen, no. Oh, but they were different. Really, Germany was considered the most civilized and modern society in the world leading up to what they did. Well, what the National Socialists did. And Russia, from Catherine the Great, Peter the Great, all was considered a highly civilized culture society, regardless of the peasants and serf system. But in general, they were. And look what they did. Look what the Japanese, who were considered cultured, did in Manchuria. But it's different. We're not like them. No, my motherfucking dumb friend. We are very much. So what you're really saying is that Germans, Japanese, and Russians aren't human, or aren't as human as you are. Let me tell you. Go back to the 1930s in America, the eugenics and things like that. They're more. Look at they're more than. You think the same fuckers who are still in power that did the Highland clearances in Scotland, exterminated the American Native Americans, nearly exterminated the Poles in World War II, the Chinese in Manchuria. You think that those people stopped existing because you haven't experienced that personally? You think there's no Pol Pot? There's plenty of Pol Pots out there. I'll give you an example. A friend of mine in England, I won't mention his name because I don't want to get him in trouble in case this person ever watched this video, mentioned yesterday that he knows a woman. When you hear this, when she's doing her gardening, she gets the snails out of the garden and with white paint writes on the snail shell, Trump, Boris, and other people she deems to be right wing, and Putin. And then she puts the snails on the road in front of her house and gets all excited when cars run over them. Now, aside from the fact that that's serial killer stuff, that's how serial killers start off. A lot of lefties are like that. When I saw a documentary a while back, when the Stalinist purges were happening, they opened the files up, perestroika and all that stuff. They opened the files up on the Stalinist secret KGB and all the people that had been liquidated during the purges and during that reign of terror. And they took all their files out and they were all still there with the photographs in them. But so many of the photographs had been scraped and scratched with hatred like this by the civil servant who was wired up to hate these people. And that, the civil servant would scratch the picture like, destroy, kill, hate. And then the fucker that was in the photograph would be like sent off to be liquidated in some NKVD killing room. And, those people still exist. Just because you're not Russian or you're not German or you're not Japanese or you're not Cambodian doesn't mean you're living in a society immune to those same characters. That woman painting Trump, Boris, and Putin on snails and putting them on the road to be killed by cars is exactly the kind of person that the lefties are. They're psychotic and unhinged. Now, that's how they are now. And like I said, someone said the other day, the left back in the days of the 70s and 80s were a different kettle of fish than they are now. They were, because the Bolsheviks back then were in the hardcore left-wing movements like the Socialist Workers' Party. Unfortunately now, those Socialist Workers' Party psychotics, the hard left, are now the controlling forces of the left. And they're the same psychotics that scratch the eyes out of pictures of Stalin's enemies of the state, even though they didn't know them. And then they're probably gassed and executed themselves. So for all your service and love of your politicians, civil servants, your governments know you're scum as well. They know you're scum and they see you like scum. You've just been useful scum because they've used you as stormtroopers, as the outer party, the Orwellian outer party, to give us the proles no chance of ever having a sane government or public policy. So therefore, they're killing you off. And they killed you off by your own free will. Like Robert Malone said, they will be soon saying, we forced no one to do it. And that's true, that's not a lie. In the West anyway. And those ones that have all taken the transubstantiation of the needlecraft won't collect the pensions, and the pension time bomb of public sector workers in the West won't happen and they bankrupt the entire Western banking systems. It all goes back to the banks, it always does. And so you'll say, but then there'll be no civil servants. Come on, people of Ukraine, come to our lands along with you who are not Ukrainians. Bring along the dog is rat. This is our new civil servants. I'm getting that? You see what I'm getting? Come along, Ukrainian people. You're going to be paid a quarter of the wage that we paid our civil servants, who are now all dead from the needlecraft, and we saved the pension. Yep, that's what it's like. So that's what, see, it all fits into place when you look at it that way. But you dumb fuckers out there will still go, Bertie, Leo, Tony. Because you're stupid. The Irish ones are the worst. You're stupid fucks. You actually think that these people actually like you and care about you. And the same with the ones in all countries, but it's worse in Ireland because this whole thing of calling them by their first names. Thinking they're dear mates, they're trying to exterminate you. But those of us who tried to help you called us names. You mocked us and you called us names. And like the video I made yesterday, I see the world with a clarity. We all of us, we see the world with a clarity. And the reason why we do is because we're not normies and we're not NPCs. In many ways, magic has entered our lives that has made us think beyond, that gave us the capacity to adapt. I'll give you an example of mine, right? When I was growing up, I wanted to be in a band, okay? And I used to go see other bands play, and that's how I learned. I said, "What chord is that?" And they'd say, "That's an F, or that's a G." And then I'd look at bar chords and say, "How do you make that?" And there might be some nice guitar player who'd say, "Here's how you make them," when he's packing his gear up. That's how I learned. I never took a lesson. But I then got an electric guitar and amp and a distortion pedal, and I wanted to make really heavy music. And I was still playing traditional chords, your usual E, A, B, C, E minor, A minor. And they didn't sound as good as what I was hearing on the records, not just by metal bands, but all kinds of bands that were heavy and stuff like that, had good sounds. And bar chords, they only sounded good when they were muted, like you mute them with your hand, the palm of your hand, the part of your hand. They sing it, they get that. That sounded good, but played openly sounded kind of not as good as they were. And so I just assumed that there was some effect they use, or I didn't realize there were other ways of playing chords. I knew there was mad jazz chords and all this, but anyway. So I used to have this friend, a hippie. He was older than me. He lived in Renlet in Dublin. I used to sit in his flat sometimes talking about his woman problems. He's a nice fella though. David was his name. And we were talking, and he had a great record collection. Well, he had a shit record collection with huge numbers of albums. He liked bands that I hated, except for Roxy Music. Roxy Music was the only band we both liked. Now, we're talking about this is the early 80s now. I was like 17. And we were listening to... He used to put on the records when we were sitting there talking, drinking coffee when I come over to say hello. And I would say, I can't listen to fucking Supertramp anymore. And I says, why? I can't. A fucking 10cc or shite. But the one thing he did play that I did like was Paul Simon and Simon and Garfunkel. Even though I mainly liked heavy, loud music, there was something about Simon and Garfunkel and Paul Simon's records that I really, really liked. And I say, no, don't take fucking, take fucking Bob Welch off the fucking turntable and play that Simon and Garfunkel live album. And I say I really love the guitar playing. Now he was a good acoustic guitar player, and he could play a lot of these songs. And the songs I really like America and Homeward Bound, which is I think they're great songs. Regardless if it's Simon and Garfunkel and it's not metal or punk or goth, it was still sounded wonderful to me. I know a good song when I hear one. And so he says, "Have you ever seen their Central Park concert?" And I says, no, I'd be interested in seeing that because I was thinking of going to America even then, and it was just because of Central Park, and I did like the band. And he had a VHS cassette, a video cassette, and he put it in there, and they were playing away, and then Paul Simon was strumming one chord, and I was saying, that looks like an E chord, but it's not. It's beautiful. And my friend David goes, it's an E chord with the two strings, top strings, the E, the high E, and the B open. And he handed me over the guitar, and I played this open E chord with the two E strings open on the 12th fret, and so there's three strings. There was the E chord basically made by the three strings, and the A, the G, and the D in the middle, but the two E strings and the B string were ringing open, droning, and it was like, oh my god. And then I went home and put my plugged my guitar into my amp with the reverb and the Boss distortion pedal, and played that chord, and I says, that is my music. The droning strings. Now, you all know that droning is a big part of Irish traditional music. You know, the real stuff, not the, idly dilly stuff. And, you know, I never went back. Now, it was that inquisitiveness by me that when I said to the guy, David, stop the video, play it back, what the hell chord was that? And he showed me. It's the kind of inquisitiveness that is why the people call us far-right, anti-science conspiracy theorists. Because we notice things that are different. We take note of them, and then if they are nice or apply to our lives, I'm not just on my music, but everything, we incorporate them. So you could be into gardening and someone showed you a tip on how to, like, I don't know, root stocks. You're into cooking and someone showed you a way to make a roux, in a different way. Or you're into cycling and someone showed you an exercise method to actually work on your calves rather than your feet. And you say they didn't show you deliberately, but they did it, and you say, hold on, what was that? How do you do that? And that kind of inquisitiveness is what makes us also cynical of the zeitgeist. But you have to remember, the normies and the NPCs who play the game don't have that inquisitiveness. So therefore, when they call us names, when we say, listen, I don't think it's like Bill Gates is saying it is. I think there's something dark and really creepy going on. And they laugh at you. They laugh at you not because of the theory itself, but because they don't understand the concept of recognizing something novel, and novelty is the universe, really, and then understanding that novelty and then bringing that novelty into your own life. They don't understand it. They don't. And we do. And that's why the tribe and people like us are considered freaks, not because of the actual substance or nature of the knowledge, but the fact that we seek the knowledge to begin with. Because we're only human. Of inquisitiveness and fucking brain cells were made. Only human.